So hi, my name is Cujo. This last week I finally got around to watching a movie called Groundhog Day all the way through for the first time. And Groundhog Day is one of those cult classics that everyone in my area talks about. It came out in 1993 and it stars Bill Murray. I've recently made a song where I titled it "One Must Imagine Sisyphus Happy," which is a quote from Albert Camus from his book Myth of Sisyphus. And all these ideas deal with infinity and looping over and over. So I guess today I'm basically talking about the idea of looping itself and how each of us are actually in our own loop, in our own Groundhog Day, and how we can actually get out of our Groundhog Day. I know it's not just me. When I was younger, not even that long ago, and even sometimes still, I slip up into a mind frame where I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day. I'm reliving the same day over and over, and I can't seem to get out of it. The reason for this being is I work a job, and then I do the same hobbies and have the same interests. There will be some variety and different things that happen in that routine, but for the most part, it's the same thing over and over. Cue Sisyphus pushing a boulder up a cliff and then it rolling back down cliff. But to go to the movie, I'm hoping that you've seen it. If not, I would recommend it, but I am going to talk about the movie, so spoiler alert, I guess. But Bill Murray plays a character where he's a cynical weatherman on television, and he's full of himself, he's narcissistic. He's going to this town where he's going to record and cover the Groundhog Day event that's going on in this town, which is on February 2nd. And he basically rushes through the day, and he's getting ready for the next day where he's going to be leaving the town and then going on a trip, hoping to further his career and then just leave these people in the dust. So he goes to his hotel, he sleeps, and then he wakes up the next morning, and the exact same thing happens the next morning. The town gathers for Groundhog Day. It's February 2nd again, and he thinks people are messing with him. And so he shows very erratic denial and lashes out basically at the people in the town. And it goes through this whole arc in character development where he ends up looping the same day over and over. He gets to a point where he's even trying to kill himself, and he tries to commit suicide multiple times. When he fails, he goes to kill himself, and then he just wakes up the next day. So over time, it makes him suffer more and more. He begins to manipulate people to get what he wants and becomes increasingly more and more cynical and pessimistic, eventually, which is what leads up to said suicides. And once he loses this complete will and drive to even exist, he just lays in bed for the entirety of the days. He eventually just starts to help people because he's tried everything else basically, but it makes him feel good, and he starts to learn skills for himself and for others, and he gets to a point where he is very selfishly selfless, is what I would say. He eventually over time perfects the day to where he can do the most amount of good and save the most amount of lives and prevent the most amount of pain possible in one day, where he's scrambling around the town and helping people left and right. And there's a lot to unpack with it. The main love interest that he tries to sleep with early on in the movie and continually slaps him, rejects him, that he tries to manipulate around and tries to get her to fall in love with him in a fake manner. She actually ends up falling in love with him because he internally just developed a character that wanted to help people. It's funny because in watching this movie, a lot of the different ideas that come from it are actually Buddhist ideas or Zen ideas, where the way that you transcend suffering and escape your own suffering is actually developing compassion for the suffering of others and doing acts of good to prevent suffering for yourself and for others. Basically, the way that you selfishly take care of yourself is you take care of others, because in doing good, it justifies a reason to live, and both your own esteem and others' esteems raise with yours. And not that other people's esteems should matter. Obviously, Bill Murray's character towards the end of the movie becomes centralized on trying to create the best person that he can be for his community, rather than what he can take and benefit from the people around him. So he ends up becoming an extremely skilled everything that he wanted to be at the beginning of the movie, out of just a desire to do the most good and create the most good in the loop that he ends up being stuck in. So he wins his love interest. Ironically, his love interest buys him in an auction for him, and he goes to sleep and he wakes up the next day and doesn't believe it. He wakes up on February 3rd instead of February 2nd, and his love interest is laying next to him in the bed. The funny thing is, I get the impression from watching the end of that scene or the movie that it didn't matter if it was February 2nd or February 3rd. he was going to wake up and he was going to do that same thing with his life over again. He's going to try to create the most good and put the most good out there and try to better himself and the others around him the most that he possibly could if it did end up looping over and over. So what do we make out of that? What do we take away from talking about that? Well, at the beginning of the movie, Bill Murray's character, he's trying to flee from himself, is what I would say. He's trying to go to a different continent where ideally, like, things are better than here because everyone is dumb around me and I'm the smartest one and I know what's going on. I know what's up. But I don't think people realize when they're trying to run to a different continent, you're really just trying to run from the person who's created the surroundings around you. So it actually doesn't matter where you're at, not with the circumstances that you're given. I've learned this from Pokemon and Nietzsche, okay? I know what's up.
I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are.
It doesn't matter what circumstances the man is born with, but rather the actions that he chooses with said circumstances that dictates the trajectory or the conclusion of his life. So when he's trying to run and he can't escape from the same day in the same town, at the end of the movie, when it's the next day, he proposes to his love interest that they marry and then stay at the town that he's been stuck in and he's learned all about through a ginormous span of time that's been implied that he's been there. He accepts his self and his surroundings. In fact, he loves it and chooses it in the end. Yeah. Just 1 second. So I think the route to actually not living the same day over and over is showing loving kindness and showing compassion. Ironically, in choosing to live that routine and live that loop, it leads to more and it leads to different and it leads to a totally different lifestyle. There's a guy I watch on here named Brandon Scheller. I hope he doesn't mind that I shout him out, but he has a great general health YouTube channel. He's a life coach, but he specializes in fitness. He joined my Discord, and right before I started filming this, he left a comment in my Discord about the One Must Imagine Sisyphus Happy song. And so I hope he doesn't mind that I bring it up in this video, but I thought it was a good thing to end on and maybe give you some perspective on bearing this load that we have, that we make it an enjoyable one, even if we are stuck in a loop. So here's what Brandon had to say in my Discord. If Sisyphus is destined for infinity to his task, then we must believe he finds a way to enjoy his life. If that is all he has, choosing to be happy is the wisest decision. In our own lives, if we will only ever know our own length of life, why not choose to believe our own life is an infinite amount of time, thus leading us to the same decision. Choosing to be happy no matter our own challenge, irregardless of time lived, the significance of the story might be destiny. If we are only ever given one life, as in the life we are in right now is our own destiny, or one task in Sisyphus' perspective, then we must choose to make it a life dedicated to actualizing the most pure aspect of its story. Who we are in this universe, our character, our relationships. And with our destiny, we must choose to live with and imagine happiness every step along the journey. And that was a quote from Brandon that he left in my Discord. It should be legit in a philosophy book, or he should write a book. You should go check him out. I really like his stuff, and he's a lot more concise and put together, I think, sometimes than I am. So, so in bearing this boulder and this loop, I wish you the best of luck if you stuck this video out to this point. And you should go watch Groundhog Day. It's a good movie. It's really good. It's very funny. I wish you the best of luck in your loop and your routine of life. And I hope you have fun with it. I hope you find fun in the now-ness. And that you find value out of listening to this talk. So thank you for taking the time to watch this. You should join my Discord. If you'd like, it'd be in the description. I'm going to pin a comment that has Brandon's channel. I love you very much. I'm going to bounce. So goodbye now.